let's bring in former Attorney General Bill Barr. Thank you very much for joining us, author of the best-selling book, One Damn Thing After Another. A lot happening here and a lot for the American people to take in. There's a lot of questions still unanswered. Where do you stand on the former president's request, obviously, for a special master to independently review this case, and what happened, obviously, looking back at a very serious raid of a former president's home?
Well, I think the whole idea of a special master is a bit of a red herring. The only documents that have been taken, it seems to me, that there's a legitimate concern about keeping away from the government and insulating the government from would be documents relating to his private lawyer communications, him as an individual and his outside lawyers. If there's stuff like that, fine, identify it. There doesn't appear to be much of it. I'm not sure you need a special master to identify it, but what people are missing is that all the other documents taken, even if they claim to be executive privilege, either belong to the government because they're government records, even if they're classified, even if they're subject to executive privilege, they still belong to the government and go to the archives. And any other documents that were seized, like news clippings and other things that were in the boxes containing the classified information, those were seizable under the warrant because they show the conditions under which the classified information was being held. So I think it's a red herring. I think it would, at this stage, since they've already gone through the documents, I think it's a waste of time. I frankly am skeptical of this claim that I declassified everything, because frankly, I think it's highly improbable. And second, if in fact he sort of stood over scores of boxes, not really knowing what was in them, and said, I hereby declassify everything in here, that would be such an abuse and show such recklessness that it's almost worse than taking the documents.
To that point, though, there's some questions over the timeline. And there are some who fall in the camp of this was, looking at the unprecedented nature of a raid of a former president's home like this, that perhaps there was more room for the authorities to obtain these materials without raiding the president's home while he was not even there. Do you think this type of this raid was avoidable? Do you think a second subpoena, for example, could have been issued?
Well, I think whether the raid was reasonable under the circumstances, whether there's in fact a case to be made, and whether or not, as a matter of prudential judgment, that case should be brought, depend on two questions. The character of those top secret documents and secret documents, how sensitive were they? Second, how raw is the evidence of deceit and obstruction? Do they have really good evidence from people who were involved of
What do you
deceit?
think the answer to that is?
I personally think for them to have taken things to the current point, they probably have pretty good evidence. But that's speculation, and until we see that, it's hard to say. Now, let me just say, I think the driver on this from the beginning was loads of classified information sitting in Mar-a-Lago. People say this was unprecedented. Well, it's also unprecedented for a president to take all this classified information and put him in a country club. Okay? And how long is the government going to try to get that back? They jawboned for a year. They were deceived on the voluntary actions taken. They then went and got a subpoena. They were deceived on that. They feel, and the facts are starting to show that they were being jerked around. And so how long do they wait?